welcome to the workshop of the Select Board to talk about the budget. And hopefully, if we're not too far off and won't take too long, we may get through our consensus votes tonight. We'll see how far we get. So, do you have anything that you want to start with, Bill or Megan, or do you want me to?
Well, I just thought that I was thinking the process tonight, and I thought it made sense to start at the beginning and see if we can just work through each budget as we go along.
Yeah, let me ask a couple of preliminary questions, though, first. Just as a general matter, does the board, can we kind of take I don't want to call it a straw poll, but whatever, of sort of your overall impressions of the budget, whether or not you think we need to work through each department, whether or not you have some overarching things that you want to say first, if you've identified a few things that you might want to make changes to, and some cuts or something, and then that's that. Maybe we don't have to actually go budget by budget. I mean, department by department, but, so we'll start with you. General comments.
Yeah, generally, I think we are within pennies of where we want to be. If there are things that we, as a select board, might want to add, there may be some opportunities to back out the equivalent amount in a couple places, but I don't see $50,000 or $100,000 worth of overspending here anywhere. I mean, like I say, if there's something we wanted to add for $10,000 or $15,000, I think we could find 10 or 15, but it's not much more or much less than that.
Mark?
I would first commend these guys for doing the budget. It's probably, I mean, I haven't been involved with too many, but it's the best thus far.
I agree.
I would say, and as Jeff had said, we're pretty close. I know we gave a target of LD1, and whether we stick to that or not remains to be seen.
Sorry to interrupt. I think our target was,
We
I
did.
think we told him to kind of do what he
I
thought
think-
was appropriate rather than
I
to
think
give him
we-
an LD1
I
target.
think we sort of said stick with the LD1, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, at the budget workshop, it was, LD1 was discussed, and it wasn't the target. It was
Yeah.
Yeah,
come
it's
forward
my
with, with
misunderstanding then, but you've
Yeah,
done well.
but go ahead.
So
Yeah.
anyway, long story short
Yep.
is I think there are things that we don't know the costs of yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it would be, if everybody is feeling good about it as I am, it shouldn't take very long to go through each of them,
Okay,
individually. But I think there are things, as we talked about with the potential sewer expansion and costs in Camden, that we don't even know what the price tag of that is.
yeah. So you think that a department by department review
Well,
would
and
be helpful?
The public was supportive enough to do the bond that we put forward.
Right,
And we will be coming with another one for the fire station. So to be as fiscally conservative now
Yeah.
will pay dividends next year,
Mm-hmm.
whenever that bond comes out. That's the only thing I'm thinking.
okay.
Can I just, on his thing, I think maybe you're confusing the sewer with this budget, because the sewer debt and anything sewer related isn't gonna impact the taxpayer mill rate. We'll have to go through that when we set the user rates for sewer.
Which impacts the taxpayers.
some of them.
It does,
Yeah, no,
but,
the ones, so all I'm saying is, we don't know what that impact's gonna be when they build their new facility to us, the town, or the taxpayers that are affiliated with the sewer, or if it runs by, but there'll
and
be a
we've
cost.
started building that into the wastewater budget already, so that it's been a gradual increase, they're not gonna see it all at once.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
that's good. Denise?
I think that, I mean, I've sort of looked at this, and I looked at the live stream from Monday, and, I think department by department would be helpful, just as a quick overview of where we are, and,
Okay,
but otherwise, I think we're close.
close. Okay. Doug?
Yeah, overall, there's nothing in here that I'm gonna go to the wall over. So I think fairly quick would be fine. I'm embarrassed to say I would like to try to understand the library revenue that gets posted a little bit better. We may not have what we need to do that tonight, but just at some point.
Yeah, that was brought up by the Budget Committee folks, and I think that's,
Yeah, I can
That
touch
is a
base on
good
that a little
topic.
bit. I had a conversation with Bill Chapman, who's the treasurer of the library committee, and Megan and I sat down and looked. So,
we can talk about it when we get there.
okay,
It sounds like we're gonna do a department by department, although it won't be, I don't think it's gonna be very long. And I would just like to say, I agree that you guys did a great job in the department heads of the budget, and it is, I've only done 2 budgets here, but this is definitely the best. And I identified like 4 things, well, I identified 4 things where I don't think that would cause anybody any heartburn, where I thought that we might be able to save, which came to about a total of $26,000. And then I identified, well, I'm going to play the Ken McKinley card, and I'm going to take the advocacy that we could up the excise tax a little bit. So by the time you up the excise tax, let's say by another $10,000, so let's just say for conversation here, then you really make a $36,000 impact on the budget. So, anyway, but that was just 4 or 5 things, you know, so I have just some discrete things that I would like to raise as we go through them, but, and you guys probably do the same. So, with that, go ahead. Bill, would you like to go ahead and walk us through department by department?
By page.
Yeah.
sure, page 90 is the administration budget, so that's the first one. It's always good to start with one that's down by 34%,
Yeah.
right, for expenses. Doesn't take much when you have a $35,000 contract that's expiring. so.
I'll just start and say that I didn't have any suggested changes here.
I don't.
Nope. Great.
Okay. So page 94 is the town manager's budget.
Use the same process.
Yeah, I didn't have any, oh, wait a minute. I did have one suggested change here. This is one of my few. I don't think that we need $40,000 in legal fees. And I think that we should be in a position that we go back to our council and say, look, this is what we've budgeted for. And we don't think we're gonna use $40,000 worth. We don't think that we are this year. We have a different way of going about doing, you know, how much we spend on legal fees, and I just think it's too much. I thought it was too much last year, but the usage, you know, was different. And so I would even propose cutting that by $10,000.
Quick question, clarification, Deborah, you're talking about the legal fees, 30/40,
Yeah.
or 30/45
I'm-
legal fees outside?
I'm talking about just 30/40, which is at 40,000. I wouldn't affect the 4,000. Also, remember that we've got bond fees spread out here. In another budget, we have lease fees in another budget. So actually, when you add up all of the legal fees, which I did not do, we're probably, what, 60,000, Megan, in legal fees?
I can tell you the amount in just a second.
And keep in mind that the line you're talking about is the contract for the attorney.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And I think that we, as we said before you came, it was on our transition list. I think that we need to negotiate that. I'm not so sure that having a straight set amount is the proper way of doing it, going forward. I'm not sure if, you know, we're gonna stick with this council or go with other council. We said we wanted to put that out for RFQs, and I think this is the time to do it, because if we're not gonna do it now, we're gonna wait a whole nother year after this. So I think one way to kick it off might be to put it back down to 30,000 and go from there.
The total expenditures, 54,500.
No, not, actual expenditures for this year.
No, the
Budgeted.
40 plus.
budgeted for
Okay, so
this
it's
coming.
4,000, and then I think there's another 6,000 in there for, is it 6,000 or so for bond counsel? But anyway,
Yeah.
there's bond counsel, there's lease counsel, so there's,
5,000 for the PD.
so there's at least 3 lawyer attorney's fees lines in here, in addition to this 40,000, which I'm not proposing that we touch, other than the 40,000.
I don't have a problem with it going back to 30.
Anyway,
What?
just
Did it-
throwing it out.
Right, and the 40,000 is based on what our current contract is, that's an annual amount for.
Yeah, it's an annual amount, which in the, as Phil says, the usage that has taken place this year is a lot less than what it has in the past. And I'm sorry, I don't want to sound controversial, but I feel like in my first year on the board, I feel like every time we sneezed, we called the outside counsel. And I think that Denise and I, both as lawyers, feel that we were doing it for policy matters, not just for legal matters. And it's an overuse of outside counsel, and you don't do that. And I think that our budget should reflect it. And I just don't think we should be charging taxpayers for that extra, what I perceive, perhaps $10,000. I think we should live within our legal means budget.
I'd be a little hesitant to make that big of a cut, only be based on, I haven't been here long enough. I mean, I think it certainly could be reduced. And, 35,000, cutting it 5 might be a good start for the first year. And then as we just put it out to RFQ, then, maybe we get to reduce that and we don't actually have to spend that. But certainly whatever the board is looking at, I understand too. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Deborah, as you know.
In the 15,950 here, that's the actual, and is that just a monthly retainer amount we pay them? For the actual cost?
Which,
The 40,000 is.
40,000, yeah.
Yeah, and to date, we've spent 15,950.
that was through December.
Okay,
Yeah, so that
Yeah,
would be
that's
the,
the invoice,
so
yeah.
that's the
That's the-
5 months.
right.
yeah, because of December wouldn't have been paid, yeah.
I would just be hesitant, although as much as I'd like to see us not get more than 10,000 off, without an RFQ or a plan at this point in time, I'm concerned that we may not be able to negotiate a suitable amount in the short term to actually realize this.
So how much flexibility do you have in the other legal lines that,
Not much. I mean, those, when it comes to the bond, legal opinions, legal counsel, and the lease purchase, those are pretty set amounts, and
Yeah.
they're pretty standard. So there's not a lot of room there when it comes to that.
wasn't there 5,000 for negotiations for the union contract?
That was rolled into this year's contingency line in the manager's budget.
So that's part of the 10,000 that's in,
That,
This year.
yeah.
It's already this year.
you're right, it's in this year's.
So it's not in.
It's in the $25,000 amount in the contingency line in the town manager's budget. Line 4450.
On page 94.
Yeah. I just thought I remembered seeing.
We have funding in the police department's budget called contingency under benefits. I think there's 5,000 and there's,
That's what I remembered seeing, and I
yeah,
thought that.
that's not for legal services, that's for potential changes in health insurance or the like, based on those negotiations with the union, which haven't started yet.
Well, it's actually 16,000.
In the wages,
Right.
yeah,
But, I,
And 5,000 down in the next one.
Right.
right.
I mean, I could support going after an RFQ and a $35,000 budget and see if it would work.
yeah, I was gonna say, 10,000 is not a magic figure. 10,000 is based on, 40 years of legal practice myself. That's where I think it ought to be. But I am okay with doing 35,000 if that's what you feel more comfortable with.
Sounds good
I
to
think
me.
that's a good
Yeah.
middle ground there. And
I mean, the upside here is if we got it to 35, we still have 4,000 in the legal fees outside of the contract. I mean, so in sum, we could probably still hit it pretty close, because you haven't used any of that this year so far, thankfully.
And I think that's mostly due to the graciousness, if you will, of the current firm. I mean, when they were handling the library appeal, I mean, they did that under the contract, even though it was one of those items that's cost them quite a bit of money, obviously. So
I thought that you said it was covered under the
they,
contract.
they did cover it under the contract.
it was,
Yeah, yeah.
described to
It
be.
was
But
covered
if
under
we
the
have-
contract, so I don't call that graciousness.
Well, but if we have other appeals that come along, I don't know how many appeals are covered under the contract. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know if there's, I don't know if there's,
I've seen the
you know, all
contract
of
in
them.
the past. I don't think there's a certain number. I
I
don't think
I
it's
don't
a
remember.
limit.
It's been a while
Yeah,
since I looked
had
at
to
it.
take a look at it.
What about the fees for the ZBA's lawyer?
That was not covered under any
And where does
contract.
that show up in?
It came on, the planning budget. We've been charging it to the planning budget, but it might have to come out of here before the
Next
end of the
time
fiscal
I
year.
think in
Yeah.
years past, prior to my being on the board, I think it used to be all under the manager's preview for the legal fees, because there was a thought that some people might be just calling up willy-nilly and charging.
We actually changed that process when we went to the straight contract. It used to be departments had to budget for legal fees, and they were in all these different budgets. When we went to the standard price contract, we moved all legal fees to the town manager's budget. But our contract doesn't cover things like lease purchase agreements and bond counsel, so that's why Public Works and the Finance Department both have legal fees showing in those
Right,
two
which we're not
departments now.
affecting by this. I'm not suggesting
right.
any effect by
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
And my understanding from Rick is that the legal fees, the $5,000 was in here really for, a lot of it was in there for the drafting of contracts. And as you know, we haven't really been having them draft contracts too much. They've been reviewing contracts, but frankly, they've been reviewing contracts after you have the benefit of two longtime lawyers who actually have been practicing longer, who
Right.
review that first. But we, of course, are not main lawyers or town council, but what the council has to do is greatly reduced as a result of volunteer work.
Yeah, no question, and I mean, it certainly helps, and it also helps, not to toot my own experience, but I've drafted a number of contracts as
Right.
well on the municipal side,
Right.
so I have a lot of experience with that. So generally, they are just reviewing the contracts and not necessarily making major
Right.
edits or writing them.
Which, my understanding from Rick, that's really what that 5,000 was, which, you know, I mean, that's what he considered it
Yeah.
in large part, I thought.
Yeah, like I said, I'm, the 35,000, I'm fine with that number. And the thought is that we'll not use it all, and then we can reduce it
Even more, yeah.
more
Yeah.
next year.
So since we don't have the RFQs out, that's fine with me if we just do 5,000, but I think that's helpful because I just don't think it's right to keep it at the level it is. Okay. Was there anything else on this department?
Well, now that you mention it, I know everybody likes the newsletter, or at least that's what I hear around the board, and Bill's had great experience with it, but we don't have anybody that watches the live feed, not to the volume of 10,000. We don't have people coming to the meetings. And I think at a time when we're looking for them to trust us a little bit more in the future, we potentially, instead of doing quarterly, maybe we do two instead of, 4 quarters.
Actually, these are for every 2 months, I think. what's
Yeah,
in
these
there,
are
isn't it?
6 times a
Six
year.
So it's not even
Well,
quarterly.
I just think that, I guess where I was going with that is, there was 2,500, I was thinking about cutting that back, and taking that 2,500 and putting it back in the Opera House advertisement that was 10,000, and Bill cut it back to 7,500. So I was trying to bolster the Opera House advertisement a little more, so we can start to promote it and get more revenue coming in, because I'm not so sure that the newsletters, people are gonna give a great deal of care about. I mean, if they did, they'd be here at the meetings, they'd be watching the live stream, and do I think it's something worth trying in the future more aggressively? Perhaps, but I think the Opera House is a good place to, if we were gonna cut that back a little bit, to take some of the cut back and put it into the Opera House advertisement. I forget the number.
Well, there's two things that are in here that are intended to reach out to residents. One is the newsletter, of course, and, which I like the idea of the newsletter for sure. I'm not wedded to any particular
Yeah.
interval. But the other thing is, and I know I was a proponent of it, was the couple $1,000s or whatever to broadcast over cable television.
Right.
And that was the other thing. And while I'm a proponent for that, and I've had several residents who have contacted me wanting that, we might want to view that as part of this discussion, even though it may not be in this budget here, as overall outreach to residents and how we want to handle that outreach to residents. Do we want to cut that one that was 2,000 something? Do we want to shave this back a little bit? How do we want to handle it?
As far as the newsletter goes, I think that this was actually something Bill brought up during his interview
Right.
Yeah.
for the position. And he thought this was a good idea back then, and I think we ought to give him some time to run with it, because this isn't something he just dreamed up out of the blue. And I get Mark's point too, but I also think with the Opera House, I'm not convinced that just throwing more money at a marketing program would necessarily generate more revenue. It's gonna have a lot more to do with how that money's used and who's kind of directing it, so.
Fair enough.
Well, I will say, I know we're talking about this budget, but in the Opera House budget, I did go through the budget and identified some areas, if there was some areas that you needed to shift money around or whatnot. And so in the Opera House, we do have a $25,000 reserve deposit into the account, so you could take a little bit of that money if you were looking for something and put it into the marketing, if you wanted to, instead of putting the full $25,000 into the reserve deposit. Not that I'm not, as you know, I'm definitely a proponent of building up the reserves, but the accounts.
Well, as am I. I mean, I understand the need for it, but I would be much happier, and probably the taxpayers would be, if you turned 50,000 back in at the end of the year versus 250 or more. So,
Sure.
but that's just me.
So, which, we don't have to go to it right now, but which department is that broadcasting?
Opera House.
It's in the Opera House budget.
Okay, the one I'm talking about with the cable
Yes.
broadcasting,
Yep.
okay.
Well,
So
I'm
sounds
good.
like we have some stuff to talk about when we get to that budget, so then are we okay with this one
I'm
then?
fine, I just was bringing it up.
Yep.
It would keep both.
Yep.
And if there is a way to keep or help the other one a little bit and work this one,
Okay. Okay, so we're good with this then, other than we'll cut the legal fees by 5,000, right? In 38, or 30/40,
30/40,
yep,
to 35,000.
okay.
Page 100 is the town clerk's budget.
All right, I'll go first. I don't have any changes. Oh, I do have the, I do want to talk about excise tax on the revenue side, but does anybody have any other changes to talk about?
Well, I wondered a little bit about the new voting booths. I know that people have been advocating for them, but interestingly, we just had an election this past Tuesday, and it was interesting that, there were a ton of, despite the line going out the door, there were a ton of voting booths that were empty, and so I sort of have a sense that the bottleneck there was really more just getting the people in and registered. So when you look at all the empty voting booths, and I know there's time setting them up and everything, but maybe we don't need to set up as many voting booths next time.
Well, that's the part of the problem, and Linda can speak to that better than I can, but we're required to have so many based on the number of registered voters that we have.
16 and we have 15 or
Yeah.
something like that, I think.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong too, but the absence of people in the voting booths probably is because the ballots were pretty short this time. So if you think about a length of your ballot, I mean, you really only had, you had 2 ballots if you were in a party, in the party, obviously, and
Well,
one
this
of 'em-
time the bottleneck was clearly, do we sometimes run 2 people there, like A to K and
Yes.
L to Z? Okay,
and that will happen in the presidential
Yeah.
election, Linda.
okay. All right, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, I was satisfied the other day with the question because, I mean, the 15 works, but if we have to have 16, when did that change? Do you remember?
For more,
Yeah,
we're close to 3,000 registered
but I mean,
voters.
how many years ago was that? Or should we have had it? That's where I guess I was going.
Not yet. We have to have,
I'm
for
good.
each
I'm good with it.
200 people, we have to have a booth. So right now, it's 15.
As long as we don't go
Oh, I
up to
guess what I'm saying-
3,200 registered.
The law
voters.
itself, or?
Right,
That's been a long time. I don't
That's-
remember.
that's
Been
right.
as long as I've.
So we should have had it years ago.
No, it's based on registered voters, and we're increasing our number of registered
And,
voters.
but they, yeah, like I said, I'm good with it anyway.
I'd like to make one comment on the budget, if you wouldn't mind. So I had conversations with the town clerk about the travel expense line, where she had requested $1,000 for travel expense, line 3105. And I had reduced it to $750 because I was just trying to find every dollar I could here and there. She made a good argument to me about leaving that at $1,000, and it is only $250. Thinking about the amount of training that the three of them in the office will have to go to, especially if we're looking at potential additional services that may be offered. And I don't want to get into detail of that, but if there's potential additional services, then there'll be additional travel that they'll need to go to for training.
For 250, I'm good.
I would
Yeah, I'm
definitely
good.
increase that.
Good.
And Linda, I don't know if you wanted to
Was there another?
bring up any other difference or not.
I guess I should.
It's up to you.
I will. I'll set near the microphone so I don't get scolded. So, the other discussion that Bill and I had was regarding my deputy clerk's wage. And he and I have a difference of 2,500, just about. And I feel the justification for the deputy clerk getting a higher wage is the difference between the assistant and the deputy is he does the, and it is he does the harbor billing. He has gone above and beyond what was done in the past, which really, I suppose, isn't a reason to give him a higher wage. But the one thing is also, when I'm not in the office, he is a supervisor. He is in charge of the office. So the difference between the two positions is only 1,600. And I feel as being a supervisory position, that position is worthy of that increase in the money. And it's the same as what the previous person would have had with the 3%.
Quick question. The harbor master, harbor billing, is that an additional duty that's been added this year that was
No,
not
we've,
there?
we've always done it, but the person we now have is more educated in using computer software and has been able to do a lot. It has saved some time in regard to that. It's more efficient. I have a cemetery software program which hasn't been utilized. He has that more than half done, so that position and who's there has done a lot of work in regard to that.
I've got an off-the-wall question. I mean, you're looking at the deputy town clerk. You're budgeting current year we're in is 40,950.
Right,
You add 3%, it's 42,179.
right.
You take 3% away and it's less than what it was in the
But it's a
current-
different person,
There's a different person in a position.
All right.
someone with we now have someone with less experience I mean,
But
is the
other
theory.
jobs also have had less experience, so
Yeah, I'm not,
I don't
I
think,
just
Yeah,
think
I
that's
mean,
why
part-
it shows
partly
different.
one of the things that I have been trying, and I realize you're new and you're working at it, but our previous administrator was 18 months after him trying to get a job description so that we can do wage surveys. And there are some that are more than the 3% in here. I'm of the mindset that until we get something that actually outlines what their responsibilities are in some sort of a competitive review of their position and others, I mean, I think they all ought to be treated equally. But that doesn't have anything to do with this, but there are others that are more than 3%.
Well, and keep in mind, we try to compare in the wage survey and, that you're talking about. Like I said before, my goal is the end of the summer, it'll be done. working
Well,
through-
in
working
the
through
same,
the job
one of,
descriptions and-
one of the same positions was asked for last year, and we as a board said not until the job descriptions were done, if I remember correctly.
And that job description has been approved by me and had been put in place.
Well, I mean, the
Right, we
wage,
left-
the
we-
wage study, I guess, not the job.
Right, we left it
Yeah.
for the new town manager to address, and he did address it as soon as he came in, because we felt, some felt there was an inequity there.
And so I am working through the job descriptions and I haven't worked my way to the town clerk's department yet with the job descriptions, so.
But the deputy town clerk is getting a 3% raise from whatever he was paid last year, is that correct?
Yes.
And I just want to clarify,
He's doing a good job, which is great.
what additional duties between last year and this year has that person taken on or been assigned?
I think I'll speak for Linda, but I'll just say that there's more cooperation between the harbor programs and the other staff in the office. So that person will pick up additional duties. I don't have a list of those available, but there is more efficiency and more effective work being done from that position. So I definitely see that,
Let-
but I haven't got the job description completed.
Let me ask a question maybe in a different way. If it were not budgeting season, where would you be on this one?
It's hard for me
I
to
know,
answer that,
I know.
because,
But the other changes were made in the course of the year, reflecting salary increases in other departments that are shown on this budget. So my question is, have the duties of this person changed to the extent that warrant an increase? You said that you brought it back because you were looking for every penny during the budget, which I fully understand.
yeah.
I guess the question is, if it weren't budgeting, would you and Linda be on the same page on this
No,
one?
I think he brought back the travel expense, I didn't,
Well, this one too.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I misunderstood.
To answer it, I can't really fully answer the question, Jeff, simply because I haven't done a full, complete review of the job description. I do know that there are additional tasks that position has been doing
Over the course of the last year?
over the course of the last 7 months that I've been
Okay.
there. I've seen the differences. So if I was to look at that job description today and change it, there would be more duties assigned to it that are already being done. So
Okay.
yes,
Which would
increase the pay.
increase the pay. That's
Yes,
what
it
I'm
would.
looking for, so.
Yep. I don't know if it would increase it to the,
Okay.
the full 42,000 or not. I can't answer that,
So
because I haven't done the work yet, so.
then the next question is, are there other positions in the department or in the town operations that are in the same, or could be in the same bucket?
In this budget or
Any of them,
in operation in general?
Well, it just,
yeah.
and that may be an unfair question.
Yeah, it's
so I'll-
difficult to answer
But I
that.
guess what we're trying to do is maintain consistency and
Sure.
fairness within the organization.
Well, and again, just because if the board decides that you want a budget for it, doesn't necessarily mean that that's gonna be spent either. Keep that in mind, because I will be doing that review. As I said, the job descriptions will be done over the summer, and there'll be a wage study done that will compare this position with other deputy clerk positions in similar communities and the like, and there probably would be a recommendation, an increase there.
And I think you just made this easy for all of us in that, when you put it that way, because we could put it in there, and then there would be money there budgeted, so that if you so chose to make that increase, when you so chose, it's there.
Correct.
The actual activity of doing that would be at a separate time.
Yes.
That I could support.
One other thing too is, I'm also, in regard to that position, I am also trying to train that person and giving them more responsibility and more knowledge in the clerk's office, because I'm not gonna be here forever. and I'm training him so that he can fill my shoes when I walk out.
One question I have, Bill, is if you, because you're gonna do this wage survey and so forth at the end of the summer, there might be some other people that may fall in a similar bucket.
Yeah, and Jeff kind of asked that question.
Yeah, and while maybe if we were to set aside some additional funds here for that eventuality, we're not necessarily setting them aside in other budgets for that.
Correct.
In other departments for that eventuality.
Correct.
Which makes me wonder if we should have some kind of contingency or something that we build in that's a larger amount
Do it
for
under the-
him,
Yeah.
that would give him the ability out of that contingency, when he does do the wage survey, to pull from that contingency, rather than putting it right
Yeah.
here.
In one position, yeah.
Not to say that it wouldn't,
It
wind
could
up
land.
going there, but that's not a decision that, we make.
And we do have in the town manager's budget, there is that $10,000 contingency there already that's in the budget. I didn't anticipate that going towards something like this, of course. But-
Well, can I suggest that we put down a note that we could address this after we get done going through the rest of this?
Sure.
I mean, it might be that, we might save a few dollars here and there in some places that the board thinks are appropriate, and then, maybe it won't reduce the overall budget so much, but it will move, a certain amount of funds over to that contingency for that eventuality. Doesn't do a lot of good when you do a wage survey and you don't have any ability to pay them with,
Sure, unless you're waiting
What
until the
you're
next
supposed to-
budget year, obviously,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
okay, so we'll just set that aside for right now.
Yep.
So one thing I wanted to ask, and Linda, this goes to you, Linda, too, so don't go too far, please. On the excise tax, recall, Denise, you weren't here last year, Bill wasn't here, but the rest of us were. And you guys, Mark and Doug, were there before us, before Jeff and me. And Ken would always come in with his analysis of how he always felt that the excise tax amount of revenue should be increased. And he did such a great job in convincing me last year, the rest of us last year, that we went with his recommendation, and we did up it fairly substantially. I don't remember how much exactly that was from what Rick had proposed to what the board upped it to, because we had confidence in what Ken was doing. Unfortunately, Ken's not here. However, I tried my best at doing some analysis based on some of the things that, that he looked at. And I just thought that it would be useful for us to go through and just discuss it and see if we think that the excise tax revenue that we have here is, where we want it to be. I know Ken was always much more aggressive about it. And it seemed like year after year, he was proved right. So anyway, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding some of this stuff. So I'm on page 106. So this is where I had my breakdown, but then of course we got this, I had last year's chart of the analysis, and then we just got this year's today. So Jeff pointed out to me at the last workshop that, if we, that we were on track, actually with about $9,000 more or so in what we have collected this year over what we had collected at this time last year. Now, I'm not looking at February, Megan, so, and Bill, so understand that I didn't have February until I got here. So just looking at what we had on 106, tell me if this is right to you. When I add those numbers up on both the columns for 18 and 19 and fiscal year 1920, I come to, well, obviously we have 520. If I added those through the same period, it came to 49,521, which is why that puts us about $9,000 ahead right now than where we were last year. If you just raise the same amount, or had the same amount of excise tax coming in for February through June as we had last year, and yet it's gone up every year, but if we just took last year's, those numbers from February through June, not including the cents, come to 383,145. If you add that to the 520, that brings you to 903,816 that you might be on track for this year. Does that sound right so far?
Yes. Yep.
And,
You're just taking the first 7 months actual and then doing a
Yeah.
forecast for the last 5.
right, based on
on the 7
last
plus
year's,
5.
just based on last
Okay.
year's, right, right. So that would bring us to 903,000, instead of the 894 that we had, or how much? No, it was 875 or so that we had forecast. And I do remember, as I said, we upped that significantly by what Rick had recommended in the excise tax, and Linda. And I understand that Linda is always gonna be conservative on the excise tax. I understand the town manager is always gonna be conservative on the excise tax. But year after year, you guys, the select board has upped it with confidence of what, you know, when Ken presented us with these numbers, we felt confident to up it. And so when I looked at just this, and if you look at the collections that we get from February through June, especially in April, May, and June, and if we forecast out that those collections will be the same as last year,
We're at 900 plus.
we're at 900 plus.
And-
So,
And even if they aren't, we're 9,000 ahead of where we were same time last year.
right, exactly, right now.
So-
And so I was saying that even if we, I mean, I could make a case for going more than 10,000 above what's been suggested, but because everybody wants to be conservative, I still think it's incredibly conservative to bump up the excise tax numbers that are presented by 10,000.
If I recall, last year, the chair, Jeff, from the Budget Committee, indicated that he felt more comfortable about going higher than the 865, or the 860. I think he would have felt comfortable, if I remember correctly, of going to 875-ish.
Yeah,
I mean, I had made the same numbers. I come up with the same 903, 816, or whatever
Yeah.
it was. And I had dialed it back to 890,
yeah,
my feel-good number, and still, and I realize, because we had talked about the same thing that you had mentioned the other day. If one company goes away, then, you know, we lose over 30,000.
Right.
Is that gonna happen? It could.
Could.
I mean, because there, you know, there's stuff afoot, but I wouldn't have any problem raising it. I just don't know what that number is. I mean,
I'll
870.
just weigh in a little bit.
yeah, go ahead. And I was going to then say, is it possible for us to also ask the Budget Committee to spend some time on this, and Jared and Jeff and those guys to weigh in? And, I mean, obviously, they're going to weigh in on it, but
Right.
specifically ask them to do that to assist us. Anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, Mark had mentioned, obviously, that there's, you know, the potential for, if there was a company that was gonna be leaving, if they were gonna move their fleet, you know, there was an estimated impact of $30,000. I also, it's not the only thing that I look at, that's a unique situation here. I look at the economy, obviously, and while it has been growing, the recent concerns with the stock market and the way that's been crazy over the last week and a half or so, it would make me nervous, just because you're looking at the numbers that we've collected last year, keeping in mind that, let's say, nobody buys any new cars because the economy is going into the toilet, then their excise tax is gonna be reduced if they
Yeah.
bought a car, because it's a
Yeah.
lower mill rate based on the year, so it's a year older, so it's a lower mill rate, so then we don't actually collect that
I-
full amount.
Yeah, I get the economy part of it, and I was thinking about that, but when you look back, and, you know, the economy wasn't so great before 2016 or 17 either, and yet we were still increasing our excise tax consistently all along. Even though, you know, I mean, you have to go way back before you see any decrease back to
Yeah, and in my experience,
2010.
the answer that I've had to that is that I think people, the vehicle leasing programs has really had an impact on excise tax in years past, when there might have been a slow growth, and then you see some larger growth. Then you have more people that are leasing vehicles, so they're getting newer vehicles, and they're only keeping them, say, for 3 years, and then they're replacing it with a new vehicle again. So, I mean, that still has an impact, I think, because we do see a lot more of that.
But it doesn't seem like that's impacted us here.
No, I think it has. I think that's why the increases have been there
I mean,
previously.
the increase between, when you really, the increases from 14-15 to 15-16, that was an increase of $50,788.
Yeah.
The next year was $34,580. The next was a smaller increase of $13,881. That was in 17-18. Okay, fine. And then after that, it jumped to last year, $49,521.
Right.
So,
Which is why I think the leasing has a big impact to that, because people are getting newer cars faster than they were previously, because the payment is lower on a lease than it would be if they're buying the vehicle. So that's why I'm saying, and they're turning it over quicker. So every 3 years, they may be turning it over and going from that third year excise tax back up to the top rate
Yeah.
of excise tax, so that
yeah,
you're
I
getting
mean, it's a huge
that
jump,
consistent higher.
$49,521.
Right, yeah, yeah. So that has an impact, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, from our perspective, people that are in leases generally stay in leases, because it's very difficult for them to go from a $300 a month payment if they're leasing to a $500 a month payment if they're purchasing it. I don't know, I haven't been here long enough to be able to see the history here with leases versus ownership and that type of thing. But that's what I found in my previous community, is that there was a big difference in the number of leases
Yeah.
for cars, and that has a positive impact on the excise tax.
I hear what you're saying. I wish that Ken was here to give his thoughts on it, but, all I'll say is, I just wanted to have the conversation. I want to hear what
Sure.
other people have to say. I want to hear what the Budget Committee has to say on the topic, too. And I know that we consistently, sorry, no offense to you guys, but the staff consistently has estimated low. And of course, by estimating so low, we wind up charging taxpayers more, so.
So I come up with the same 903, I dialed it back to 890, which is 13 less than what the projection might be using the same 5 months
Yeah.
remaining in the year. I mean, I don't have any problem putting it up 10,000 more at the most, 880,
I was thinking
885 at the,
Yeah, I was thinking 10, yeah.
But I think to go further would be a stretch, even
Oh, I
though it's,
agree.
even though it's possible. I just don't want to put us in a
I agree,
pickle.
I agree.
Yeah, May and June of last year were really quite a lot higher than a lot of other years.
Then what?
Than the other years, May and June. There's just some.
Well, they
really-
were all high, they were all higher. I mean, I think that you need to look at the fact that May and June are higher months than the prior months. I mean, those are the months we
Yeah.
haven't collected yet,
Yeah.
right?
That's exactly
So we
what I'm just
should,
saying, yeah.
so we should expect that, I would think that we would be on target to collect at least what we collected last year, which would put us at that 903,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say that and I haven't done the financial that you guys have, I just saw this tonight, but you look at this, and historically, we've never had less in a year than we did the previous year.
Right,
I mean,
not-
it's never happened according to the records that we have here.
Right,
That's a good thing.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Right,
no, I get
right,
that, I get
right.
that.
Getting
And
expensive.
so, but the numbers that we were given by the town clerk and by the town manager is less than it was last year. It's gonna be less than it was this year, so it just doesn't seem to follow the trend.
It's less than what we're projecting to get in, but it's only, it's 860 is what was the budgeted, and we're only going up 5,000 from that.
Yeah.
And then Bill put it up another 10. So the projection is over 900,000,
No, I get
if
that.
you use those
yeah.
numbers, but,
Right, and you look at the prior year and it was
894.
50,000 above.
yeah.
Yeah.
So throw a number out there. You're looking at 10,000? or-
885.
890. 890.
See, I was even saying 885. I was saying 10,000 just to be conservative, but
I'd go with 885. I mean,
Yeah.
I had the 890 written down before we come in, but I don't wanna put us in a position of, we can,
yeah.
somebody can, maybe we all can branch things up again, next year.
I know we had this discussion happens every year, Bill, and this is the kind of the way.
It does in every community,
Oh,
so,
okay.
Not surprised.
That's the largest fudge factory.
of course.
Okay, so we're
That and
At
You
paving.
guys good with 885? So 10,000?
10,000.
But would you please flag it for the budget committee to weigh in on, just to?
Sure.
I mean, they're going to, but,
Yeah, no, we'll highlight all of the differences, all of the changes that you're suggesting by consensus vote to them when they start their workshop, so.
because I'm sure definitely want their input for sure. Okay, next. Is that it? That's it on that
Yeah, that's all I
department,
had,
isn't it? Yeah, okay.
Planning and community development details is on 108.
Just for the record, would you one more time go through the miscellaneous professional services, the $60,000 there, how
Yes.
we
Yep.
arrived at that?
Line 3060. So what that is comprised of is the secretary for the planning board and zoning board of appeals, we're correct? Yes. And the contract with the Midcoast Economic Development District for planner services. And I have successfully negotiated, don't have the contract drawn up yet, but will be, the current contract with McEd for planner is for 16 hours a week. And as I said, when we reviewed this budget, I'll be adding 8 hours a week from McEd, in addition to the 16 hours a week, and the 8 hours will be devoted to economic development. Because as you know, and as I've said, we need to have some focus on economic development, and I can't do it at this point, as much as I'd like to. And that is not gonna be at an additional cost for the town. So we'll be getting the 16 hours of the planner and 8 hours for a different person that's in economic development, focus for the same cost. So that's already in that line.
So the 60,000 includes
Includes the,
24 hours of,
yes, the secretary
Yeah.
and the 24 hours from McEd.
okay.
I have no changes.
16 of which is the planner and 8 is, which is the economic development person.
And then
Right.
there's a secretary that's,
And the secretary for planning board and ZBA,
okay. And that's the person who takes the notes at those meetings?
and writes the minutes, yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get back to my nickel and diming. But when you look at printing, we've 561 is the highest, and you've got 1,000. We've only spent 88. I know it's nickel and diamond, but
Which one is that, Mark?
3850.
3850, which
They
is
have
one of
those
those ones I had a
comp
yellow highlight by.
Yeah, my only comment there is the reason I left that at 1,000, because that's one that I would identify as I'm going through and reviewing the department head's budget, is that we have the comp plan process. And
Okay.
we printed off one of the comp plans, the old comp plans, and it was $43 for us to print that off. Which is why we're doing them electronically for most people, so, so that, there will be plenty of printing that will be going on
Are
as we
most-
get through that process.
So most people are doing it digitally?
Most are doing it, yeah, the old plan electronically, but as we're distributing information through that comprehensive plan process, it will be written material and
Yeah,
printed material,
right.
so that's why I left that up there.
That's why I did a reply to all on my digital to encourage others.
I did have a question on the revenue, the R0208. 9150 was what was budgeted, but we have nothing year-to-date. I mean, do we get money from them every month or every 6 months, or?
No, that's, for wastewater wages and benefits, I do it when the wastewater cash flow allows. And because we only bill quarterly, that doesn't necessarily follow with our general fund cash flow.
So I guess where I'm going is, I mean, I see 9150, which is a, $1,300 increase from the year before. But we're going up 10% to 10,100. Is that based on what their raises are gonna be, or?
Raises and benefits. Wastewater reimburses a percentage of wages and benefits. So you combine those two together, that's what the percentage increase is.
So the wastewater department reimburses
Yeah.
for town staff that work with wastewater, or contracted staff in this case with McKed staff.
Flipping to the next one.
Okay, so anything else on
Nope.
this one? Okay, next.
Finance, detail starts on page 116.
Now we can slash and burn.
Yeah.
It's nice that you didn't say that about the town manager's budget, I appreciate that.
We may need something for the night's over, though.
This is where we have the $6,000, just a note, not to do anything about it, but that's $6,000 for the bond council there, the infrastructure.
And the postage is doubling, some reason I highlighted that.
Go ahead.
We're doing annual the W-9 mailings because we're getting a lot of 1099s back, and those are expensive to produce. So we're doing that, and we're also issuing, for some reason, a lot more checks through accounts payable, which causes us to pay more in postage.
And the rate did go up as well.
Right.
This is an instance where if you look at 2205, you know, it's the same sort of thing. You know, the person may have been here, you know, a year or so longer, and they are given more responsibility, but so is the other person, and you're looking at a considerable difference.
Yeah, and the job description did change in this instance with this position. That was one that
Yeah.
I did approve.
That's right after you got here. On the revenue, on the 306, for what Mark was talking about, with the wastewater
Yes.
reimbursement.
We actually increased the percentage also of the wages that's from it's not really an administrative assistant position, but that's the title we have in the budget. The amount of work that position is doing for wastewater has increased, so we've increased the percentage of the wages that are coming from that to be reimbursed from wastewater.
Okay.
That's why there's a bigger jump there than,
Right, 45% or
normal.
43%.
right?
Anything else on this one? Hearing none?
Assessing details, page 122.
This is where I'll stick my neck out first.
Okay.
I would like some explanation as to the direct benefit we get under 3060. Why are we paying someone from another town to come and help our assessor who's not here 40 hours a week?
Yep.
I mean, I know he's available 40 hours a week, but he's
Right.
not here 40 hours a week.
Right, and we get paid for his use from Camden.
I'm talking about what we're paying Camden
Yes.
for their person to
Yep.
come here. So what direct benefit do we, why is that happening?
So-
I've never been happy with an example before, so I'm looking to see if there's a new spin.
Sure. Couple
No,
of
I
different,
know.
couple of different answers that I'll have for that, Mark. Number one is that the assessor, the assistant assessor that we contract with from Camden focuses much of her time on personal property assessments, which is in and of its own right, its own animal compared to real estate tax assessments. And it's also, when they do inspections, and I've always, in many communities that I've been in, I've never liked having the assessor going out by themselves to do an inspection. So I see the benefit here that they go out together to do inspections, and in some cases, you'll have, maybe it's an elderly lady that the house is that's being inspected, and if you have a male that comes and approaches, it's a little
I
different
get
if
that
there's,
part of it.
if there's a female that's
But-
there with them as well,
so-
and vice versa.
So what they're doing is to help offset what the assessor isn't able to do because he's in the neighboring town working for them.
I don't know if I'd put it that way
Well,
necessarily,
but that's sort of where I'm going. So if he were here a full 40 hours a week, would he be able to do some of the jobs that the assistant from Camden were paying for?
yes.
Okay, so that's where I'm going. I'm still confused about the direct benefit
I guess
that
the
we
way-
get for that.
Yeah, I guess the way I've always thought at it, and Mark, you know I'm not an expert at this, but you could have two assessors, one assessor X who works full-time at one town, and you could have assessor Y who works full-time at another town, and yeah, that would work. I think, though, there's some benefit if you have assessors X and Y working in one town and then also working in the other town, just because it provides a little more coverage, a little more experience with neighboring towns, and sort of gives you a little bit more of a backup if you should have problems with one of those assessors. Does that make sense? what I
Except for
just
the other
said?
town, except for the other town doesn't have an assessor. You know, you're,
Well, they would. I mean, the assistant assessor is a certified main assessor that we
I,
contract for.
you
So
know, and I get that. I just, it's always just, you know,
to be honest, I mean, to come into the situation, and again, having been here for just a short time, it works well. That was one thing that I obviously looked at when I came in. How does it work? What's happening there? Can we go with just one full-time employee, and the like? And, if you look at the reimbursement we get for Camden is almost $72,000 for the time that our assessor spends in their community, and we spend $19,000 to
and
have
I
some
guess
coverage back, so.
And I guess I was a little disappointed that we weren't able to keep another employee that left, that was being groomed, if you will, for that specific job or that assistant.
Yeah.
So, that's just sort of
Yeah.
irks me a little bit.
Well, yeah, and there are many reasons for that.
And I get that,
person
I mean,
leaving, so.
right. But I would hope that that's something that we might be able to groom one of our current people to be able to do that job, so that we don't have to pay those guys for
I'm always
somebody coming over here.
looking for efficiencies and for succession planning, so.
And when you were talking about the assistant assessor having an expertise on personal property, you were talking about for businesses, right? The
Yes.
personal property that we
Yes.
charge to businesses,
Yes, business personal property.
which we don't charge to short-term rentals, by the way. So, anyway.
We do hotels.
Well, I mean,
Hotels pay.
but hotels do pay
Yes.
that personal property tax.
Yes,
So when we
short-term
do
rentals aren't
talk
classified as a
about the
business.
short-term rentals, as we have a timeline to do, let's keep in mind that we might need the expertise of that person even more than we have now, depending on what the board does.
Not to get off base, but keeping in mind that would have to be, there'd be a different classification in state law when it comes to short-term rentals, in order to classify them as a business, so that they would then, we could then tax their business property, so.
Well,
not-
yeah, I mean-
Not that I'm against that, certainly,
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
we just want
but it's-
similar-
but it is good to have the expertise there.
Right, exactly, that's all I'm saying.
So, that was a better explanation than I've gotten in the past, thank you.
Well, I got half a lick there then,
No,
right?
no, you're, hey, but.
Okay, so we on to the next department? I think so.
Municipal building details 126.
Got nothing.
Nothing. No.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I have something, but I don't think it's there.
I guess the reserves was one I had for the computer reserves, 7570 on 127.
Yep.
How much money do we have in the reserves currently?
With this year's withdrawal, we have like $179.
Okay.
Time to build that
That
up.
one runs really tight.
Well, it runs tight, but
Okay.
it's on the schedule too,
Question
so that you
answered?
have a replacement schedule, so that you budget as you go along.
I had something, but it's not here. I didn't have
Okay.
anything. I think we're done.
Insurance detail, page 132.
less on that than I had on the town office building.
Well, again, it's always
Tough one
good
to
when you
dig
see,
into.
yeah, when you see
Yeah.
decreases of 12% overall.
All right,
Nothing?
next.
General assistance, page 138, detail.
The only one I had on that was, sorry, did I jump ahead?
No, yeah, go
I-
ahead.
One I had on that was just the question on the, it doesn't make any difference to the town anyway, because somebody else pays it, but the mortgage line. So it's not gonna make a difference to this budget, whether we do
Well,
10,000 or 15.
right, I mean, you could reduce it, again, if you do reduce it, you have to reduce the revenue, because there's an offset there.
Right.
So that gets reimbursed 70% from the state.
Oh, yes,
So if
okay.
you reduced it,
We're not gonna do, I'm okay where it is. I remember that part now.
All right, thank you.
So what happens, I'm just curious, if we allow for 15,000 here, but we actually only say we only spend 400,
yep,
what happens to the other 14,000? Is that just money that is sort of in our coffers somewhere that we?
it goes into the undesignated fund balance at the end of the year.
Okay,
Yep.
But only the difference between our uncollected revenues and our unexpended funds, so it's only 30% of what's unexpended.
Right, so you don't realize the revenue, so the net.
right, in this
Amount.
particular case where you only
Yes.
got,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, next.
Police Department, page 144.
All right.
Nothing.
Well, I guess that was the part that we were talking about, the union negotiation for wages and benefits.
Yes.
And that's something that 16,000 isn't covered under our current legal.
The 16,000 is for potential increases in wages for the officers based on those negotiations, the outcome of those negotiations.
Well, I thought that's what was already in place when I look at the numbers. I mean, you have the,
No.
the sergeant's 2.2, the patrols.
Yeah, what you have there is just the general 3%. So that doesn't account for any additional increase in their wages based on those negotiations. And so I know, I hate to say this on live stream, I know that their wages are lower than other agencies in the area.
All right.
So I've allowed for some room there for potential, what their potential asks may be. Not that I'm gonna give it all to them, but I need to have something built in there. And then under the employee benefits, the contingency line of $5,000 is just to help offset whatever benefit changes in the FICA, Medicare, retirement accounts, deferred compensation it comes out of those wage adjustments.
If I remember correctly, the reserve or part-time money was for Justin to draw blood.
That, and I think, we also, if Camden can build a Worcester ship, that comes out of a different line, I believe. Megan, can you help me on that one?
It comes out of miscellaneous contracts, 3090.
So we have 4,000 in there, and that's to do with Justin doing his thing. But my recollection is the 1,500 that's in the part-time, which we don't have part-time now, right? So what's the 1,500 for then?
1,500 was for if we called in somebody to do those blood draws. That was the part-time. What's the other number?
Well, you have 2210, which my recollection was 1,500 for Justin to draw blood.
Right.
And now we're saying that Justin's drawing blood is out of 3090,
No.
which is 4,000.
The 3090 is Camden coverage. When we don't have officers to cover a shift and we have to pay Camden for that.
That's why it's under contractual services.
The 2210 is when we call in somebody
But
that
don't-
we pay an hourly rate to do blood draws.
I have a note here, thinking about donuts, but I can't decipher it.
You were supposed to bring them tonight.
I can't decipher it, so we'll just skip over it.
think that's when we parted with doctor jokes and donut jokes.
So,
You've seen this show before.
my last comment on that would be the 75-35, 5,000 for reserve. You know, I'd like to see us get back to, and I'll tell the story, the Tahoe that was traded, you got 10,000 for. They sold it to an employee for 12.5, and the dealer that you buy them from said we could get 14 or 15 for all day long. So is it better for us to have the extra money by selling it ourselves versus not getting full value by trading it? So my point to that would be,
Don't you have a liability issue there
For
at some
what?
level? If the town sold a vehicle directly?
Yeah, this
As is
discussion
where
we had
Yeah.
last year, and
Yeah.
I think the select board at that time sort of felt like we didn't want to be in the used car business.
no, Rick and Randy said, but what I'm saying is, if we can make more money for the town by doing something ourselves, and I just gave an example of that, then we should be looking at opportunities which Bill is exploring.
Yeah, so I can answer that a little bit, and Mark and I have talked about this. So I don't want to be in the used car business either. I particularly don't want to sell used cruisers locally if we don't have to. So trading is easy, but you're not going to get the value that
Yeah.
you're going to get if you do sell it outright. We all know that with your own personal vehicle. If you can sell it outright, you're going to get a better price. But there are websites that I've used in the past that you can generally put vehicles on that are, nationwide, everybody can access them. And I've had good luck getting higher prices than I would locally.
So where I was going with that is, I would like to zero the 5,000 out and sell the vehicle ourselves and take that money from the sale and put it into there, and
My-
start building it that way.
My only concern with that is that I haven't had the opportunity to do that with a police cruiser. So I'd like to see,
How much history do you want?
well, I'd like
I
to,
mean, I
I'd
know
like
what
to be
I've
able to,
done, and I know what you've done.
yeah,
And we both have different philosophies, but
sure, but I'd like to
Yeah.
be able to have the experience doing that here to see if we get that and still protect us with that. My thought is that if we get that money, if we sell the vehicle outright on a website and we get whatever it is, that money's gonna go into that reserve account anyway.
so you're not,
I mean,
you're
that's my
talking
feeling.
about selling it, not trading it. So
Talking
you
about
get a-
selling it, not trading it.
So you get a better deal buying it outright. The
Well, we'll
new-
get, and that money that we receive for selling the vehicle,
So
then-
what I'm hearing you say is you're gonna sell the old one and buy the new one outright.
I'm gonna try to sell the old one, yes.
Right. But you're gonna buy the new one outright,
Well, we'd have to, right,
sell the old one and put that money into the reserve.
into the reserve account, and that would help offset that. And then next year, when I'm looking at our vehicle replacement plan here, if we got double that we didn't expect, or we've got the money built in there that we've already got from the sale, then you're not gonna see a $5,000 number in there. Or whatever it is for
Good.
next year.
Okay, we're moving on.
Wish some of you others would speak up and say something. No, I'm just- You and I are,
What's
Hey.
next?
Jeff's working it.
I think it's page 156.
I'll work
is that
on it.
right?
Yes, 156 is the fire department. And Chief Peasley's planned on being here, but he's in EMT class.
Ah, more important.
I have no
No, that's
changes.
good. I don't think I have any changes here. I think you guys were deleting the post office box. Right?
Yes,
Or were you?
we can
Yeah.
do that.
Well, it was just a reminder.
Yep.
Hey, $60, I'll write it down.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just one of those things, it was consistency, I guess, that we just mentioned last.
What line was that?
I don't,
Keep going, keep going.
okay, this is one where I have a question. On page 157, the radio reserve. I understand the thinking behind here that we needed to build up this reserve again, but as I understand it, that it's based on when 911, when the county goes
When they upgrade their radios to digital,
Right.
yes.
Do we have any idea when that's gonna happen?
We don't.
They were talking
And we
about it
have-
5 years ago.
Yeah, and do we have any idea how much it's gonna cost us when they do that?
Yeah, what that number is, Steve.
It was upwards of 40,000 to do all of the fire department radios, all of the police department radios, and the radio at the harbor. Okay.
How much is in that reserve now? I know it's in my packet.
Easy, big fella.
There's 13,724, which is showing in here, but there have been some approved expenditures out of that to the
Right,
tune
we're-
of, I can't remember.
Probably it's close to $13,000 that we're gonna spend on the tower and the antennas.
So we're pretty much wiping it out.
And this is
I
part
thought
of the
that's what we were
problem,
doing, was wiping it out.
because I remember putting that money in there last year for the radio improvements. I mean, we're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's, otherwise you'd have to wait to
yeah.
and budget for the tower and antenna replacement.
Well, it's one of those things where I understand that we need to create reserves and et cetera, but it was just one of those things that I know we discussed last year, and it's just hanging out there as one that we don't absolutely have to have in this budget. I know it's a good thing to have it, but I'm not suggesting we take it out, but I'm just kind of flagging it myself as something that if we really,
Is the 11,250 some percentage of what we estimate the total to be?
At the time, that amount was based on when the county thought that they were gonna be moving to these new digital radios.
So is it like 1/4, and it's at around 40,000?
Yeah, this was a percentage of what it was for the fire departments to replace their radios, spread out over 4 years.
Okay.
Because-
can we find out, sorry, can we find out from the county when they expect to do it now, if they have it? I mean, if they don't have it budgeted,
It's not in their budget for this year.
it's
What-
not in their budget for this year, then
What do you think, chief? You're the one that listens to
I'm
the,
retiring in 10 years, it may happen between now and then.
so how
The
long?
problem is, it's gonna be so costly because everybody has to switch over to digital radios. That includes the fire departments, the police departments, but everybody has to, so from what I've been told is everybody has to switch at the same time. So when you're looking at all the small departments, the number of radios they have, their budgets per year.
Aren't we doing it because the state did it and now we have to follow
I
suit?
think bandwidth-wise, it's gonna be mandated at some point by the federal government.
And, and everybody has to do it at one time, so how do we have any control over what other towns are doing? I mean,
We don't.
obviously it's a rhetorical question. We don't have any control over what other towns are doing, and we can budget all day long in reserves, and if other towns aren't
Well,
doing
I
it,
could do this for you. We have a new director of communications department down there,
yeah,
so I can ask him if he has a projected date and get back to Bill tomorrow.
that would be great, cause
I don't think it's on the horizon within the next year or two.
Has he been confirmed as the director, or is he?
Yes.
He has,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Because he was interim, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed to cut it back a little bit, just because I don't believe it's gonna happen in the next,
Or maybe maybe that goes toward a contingency we were talking about for the staff. I mean, there might be other uses that we can put that money to that are more immediate. I don't know, depending on the answer. I don't wanna be caught.
well,
flat-footed
we
this
should,
night or
we
whatever,
should
but-
make some comment so that the budget committee, to which we have some here, will have an idea of what we were talking about.
Okay, well,
Okay, so Randy's gonna check in.
yeah, and I've flagged it for us maybe for our summary discussion at the end. But,
Yeah.
Can we do-
You're anticipating 40,000 for replacement cost?
it was upwards of 40,000
I
for
mean,
all three departments.
it does seem crazy to be putting this, money, 11,000 into the reserve fund for something that may or may not happen.
Well-
If they did it tomorrow and we needed 40,000, we could take it out of the unfunded
right,
or undesignated fund balance.
And that's part of,
You know.
part of the problem I have when we, and I understand we had to do the tower, but, with the antenna. But if we're gonna
which
put
wasn't
that in
planned
there.
for, unfortunately, yeah.
This money shouldn't go for anything else other than what the intention's for.
Well, okay, so I would say temporarily, I mean, again, we need to have, I think, a full summary discussion of this at the end here before we leave tonight of potential changes to communicate to the budget committee. And I'm keeping track of them, and I know that you guys are too. But I would just say preliminarily, I would be in favor of deleting that.
I'd zero it
Altogether.
out.
That's a consensus, sort of?
Yeah.
Working consensus.
From what I'm hearing, it's
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to hear from Randy when they think it might happen, but,
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I
sure.
agree. No, I agree.
I mean,
totally.
if Randy gets a squishy answer,
Yeah.
I'm okay with putting that to zero.
Instead of going to zero, my recommendation would be you just keep maybe 5,000 in it or something like that, so that at least you have something that's.
And I'd be happy doing that, because that way there's something in there, we're
Right.
just,
Would we like to do that right now and make this easy?
Well, what's the purpose of keeping 5,000 in it?
Well, so that we have something in that
Working
account, because
towards-
we're gonna have nothing in
Well,
there,
and to
basically,
Doug's
so.
point.
Well,
if
5,000 out of 40,000.
5,000 out of 40 some plus is nothing. I mean, if we.
No, but the plan that I would say is that what I would do is, if it's 8 years out, we do 5,000 a year, and we get there, instead of having 11,000, we're there in 4 years, and we don't need it for another 4 years. So,
it's definitely happening, it's just a question of when.
it's a question of when, correct? I mean, we don't,
and
we're doing the right thing, I think, by planning for it, so that we don't get nailed all at once, because it's gonna be more than 40,000 by the time they get to doing
I
it.
could support leaving 5,000 in there.
Yeah, I can, you guys, are you okay with 5,000? I would delete it, but I'm okay with 5,000.
So is that a yes,
I think that's,
5,000?
I think that's a 5,000. Okay, that was one of my 4 or 5 items. Okay, so the next one.
West Rockport Fire Station, page 166.
Did we, isn't this the one where we said that we questioned the heating fuel one, and how come that had gone up so much, or?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Just looking at my numbers.
I know we just spent 700 for 2 months' worth, I think, when I did the warrants the other day.
Yeah.
And I know it's just a small item.
754.79 was the number that I signed a warrant for the other day.
So we're
Well-
actually up to 2,000.
Well, no,
almost
I mean, that's
2,000.
We-
on top
We,
of.
yeah,
What we've
well,
spent.
well, if you look at this, we spent $1,259 through, the end of
December.
November.
Really mild,
Yeah, end
all
of
summer
November.
and mild.
No,
Okay.
6 months, that's December.
So, all right, so that was 6 months, but that isn't even the heavy heating time.
In January and February, just was $754 I signed a warrant.
So that's
So we're
at
almost
two-
2,000.
We're up to $2,000 already. And we
I
still
will
have
s-
March and April.
I will say that we did go back, Megan, and went back and dug through some more receipts, so I have a longer, average now of 5 years of expenses, which is helpful, because there was that 1 year that was extraordinarily bad with cold winter. So the new average came down to 2920 for that line, so there's a
Leave
couple
it.
$100.
Leave it, it's,
Leave
yeah,
it where it is.
yeah.
I didn't,
Okay.
believe it or not, have any yellow marks there.
Okay, I think that's it there, right? Or is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Other public safety detail 170.
We did get something from reference 3420, fire protection hydrants. We did get something from them indicating that they were going up 7.8%.
Yes.
I had nothing.
Okay. Do we know if they're gonna do anything with that 7.8%, or they're just gonna use the same old,
Put it in their bank account?
yeah?
Doug?
I would like to see the capital items, the streetlight lease payment. I don't know if this is the right place to put it, the 47,000. Is that, if we were to add 2 streetlights on the bridge, is that where this would go, like another $500 or something?
I know where you can pay for that.
Is that where you would be?
No, the streetlight lease payment
That's
is
just
for the
the
lease
lease.
purchase. That's for
Okay.
the lease purchase that you guys will be acting on Monday
Right,
night.
okay.
Do you wanna spring the good news on him?
Well, yeah, I can let them know. I mean, that's,
Is that good news?
Maybe.
what Mark's referring to is that we were notified by CMP that we will be getting a $4,000 refund for lights that have been out.
Ah,
And that'll show on our
that
monthly bill.
be the
so that
I
we'll-
move that
on the
we
bridge.
use that money to put 2 streetlights on the bridge.
Workshop,
Second.
workshop.
During a
Not yet.
workshop, you can't make any motions.
No.
Yeah, but we could do it, will we need a vote on that on Monday? I mean, we could do it on Monday, couldn't we?
You don't need to
We
vote
don't
on
need to
that.
vote on that.
You don't need to vote on
Well,
that.
we need
Put that toward-
to
But anyway,
set a policy for the town manager to execute.
the consensus?
I need to get
Consensus.
pricing. That's what I'm working on, is to get pricing for streetlights for that bridge. So, that's the first, and we can do that within the
Is there
budget.
sort of a consensus, though, that?
There's
I
a
don't even know if we
Good
can do
thing.
that today.
Well, we are taking consensus votes for the budget, not votes, we're doing consensus.
I don't
votes
think you
or
have to
whatever.
give me direction on that.
Yeah, okay, good, he's got it.
It's darker than a pocket on that bridge. I already got that covered.
All right. Okay.
Okay, great.
But
That is
some
good news. Thank
yes.
you, Mark.
Some good news.
Wow. That's
Bless
remarkably
CMP.
good news, yeah.
So nothing else there?
No,
Animal control, page 174.
I don't have anything.
Nothing?
Nope.
I think we're not going on. 178?
178.
I didn't have anything here.
Are you, just real, are you comfortable with the 2110, 2115 timing? Because that had changed in this budget compared to last year. Start time of the assistant, right? That flip-flopped? I just,
Yes, no, I'm comfortable with
okay,
that.
get, those numbers are good?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else there?
Okay,
Yeah.
we're okay.
So I did get some information, thanks to the police chief, about the radio, the digital
Oh.
radios.
That was fast.
Yeah, he's good.
There's no plan in place that would have digital radio service up and running prior to July 2022. So that's not that far away, so
No
So-
there's
plan.
no plan currently in
So-
place.
Right, so there's no plan going in, up until the 2022. So even at 2022,
That's when they'll probably start planning
start the
for it.
process.
Yeah, so I think,
Plan,
I
right?
zero
So-
that
So maybe
bucket
the five, oh,
Oh, leave it where it is.
Sorry.
leave it where it is at 5. Is that the consensus?
Well, because if it does hit, even in 2024, you're gonna be pulling from an unassigned fund balance.
Well, he'd have to raise his budget, and everybody likes the fire department.
Okay, are we on 186?
yes.
I didn't have anything.
I had nothing.
Nope.
Did we skip over public
And
safety?
under Denise?
Nope.
I didn't have anything.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So you're all done with that one?
I think so. Doug gives us the high sign.
Yeah, no, I'm all set.
Is okay? Yeah.
Just one of those oddball questions, if we're on page 190.
Yep.
I've
We
got
are.
3.1% for one and 4% for another.
It's just based on rounding. I mean, the numbers are so small there that
All right.
when you round a little bit,
Nothing.
it skews that percentage.
Okay.
Hell, public works.
Nothing on 190?
Nope.
All right, go on to Mark says Public Works.
196.
Who is it that I was, go ahead.
Well, we might not be able to afford it, but I think 300,000 for paving is still not where it needs to be, based on the million plus we think we'd have to spend each year if we did it right.
I don't disagree.
I know, I just,
My concern, and I'm not gonna tell you not to increase that. If you want to increase that, please do. or create a reserve account for paving road construction.
It's the time and the availability of people to do it.
Yes.
I understand. So I'm okay with the 300,000, but in years future, we've got to continue to work that out.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, and given, I mean, given the infrastructure bond that we just did,
Right.
given the fact that we're gonna have to do something for the West Rockport Fire Station, I mean, there's just so much pain
Oh,
that
yeah.
taxpayers can take, so I'm good with leaving it. So we're good with that budget then? Anybody else have anything? Okay, moving on.
.206 sanitation.
I have nothing.
I had nothing. Okay, we're moving on. 12,
Yes, library.
with all due respect, the suggestion that one member of the budget committee had about increasing this by $20,000, $10,000 for furniture and $10,000 for landscaping, I don't agree with that. I don't know what the budget committee will come back with, but we said all along that, well, you know, the foundation is gonna be doing the furniture, $10,000 is a drop in the bucket compared to the $250 that's suggested for furniture, and.
I'm okay with leaving the budget where it is, as proposed.
Okay. There's one, let's see here,
Hang on a minute.
I have two.
Okay, so on the revenue side,
Okay. Yeah,
I just wanted to explain
Yeah.
that a little bit. So I have been working with the treasurer of the library committee, and for next year's budget, we will have detail that shows the breakdown of those revenues, kind of in a percentage or dollar amount anyway. But essentially what it's made up of, which I think was the question from the budget committee, basically what's in that revenue amount. It's the library revenue that comes in, so fines, fees, things like that, copies, et cetera, as well as the gifts and donations that they receive throughout the year. So those things are part of that number, and then whatever's left over comes from the endowment. So it varies every year based on gifts and donations mostly, because that's a big number that usually comes in, although it's probably trailed off, I think, in this year for the library committee director because of that. So that's why there'll be more coming from the endowment out of the 129 that's there. And again, the 129 will decrease next year because we won't have the moving costs, which is
Well,
a $30,000.
let's back it up, let's back it up to my question,
Yep,
which was, when you look at 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, they're $52,000 to $58,000 figures.
right.
My question was, how did it go and what was it for? To go up 30,000 the next year, and we've only, to date, round numbers, $20,000.
You're looking at actuals versus budgeted when you look at those four numbers. Ben consistently, since I've been here, has never expended all the money allocated by the library committee.
Okay,
So
so
that's why there's a $30,000 difference.
actual is, and I understand, but actuals are still 52 to 58, and you're budgeting 85. How were they forecasting or predicting that they're gonna get that extra?
I haven't gotten to that point yet. That's
Yeah,
with,
Well, and I
I've
think what
been,
Megan is saying is maybe they were budgeted in those prior years a higher amount than what he actually spent.
Right. He never expends all those lines in gray. So even though he budgets that and the reimbursement for that is supposed to be 80,000, because he hasn't spent it, we're not gonna get that full reimbursement.
And we're only 19,433 year-to-date, though, for the first 6 months.
Because that's what he has spent out of those lines.
because it's a direct reimbursement,
Yeah.
so whatever he spends gets reimbursed directly. I'm digging into it, I just
Yeah.
haven't, it's only been
Yeah,
a day
Yeah.
or so,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah,
haven't,
that's good.
but that will be,
I mean, your explanation makes sense of where the money comes from.
Right.
What doesn't entirely make sense, and I think this is what Mark is getting to, is, you know, the 30,000 this year and then another
sure.
jump next year.
Yeah, well, the jump for this year is really the moving cost.
Yes.
Well, so
Yeah.
that takes your 129 back to round numbers 100.
Right.
Which is still 15,000 more
Sure.
than the year before.
Yeah, and there was another category that was jumped up because of, well,
Right.
I mean, I'm okay, I just,
Heating fuels increased, electricity was increased.
miscellaneous contracts.
Well,
Yep.
we'll have
6,000.
more info.
Yeah, but I'll have that info,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a while, because in talking with Bill Chapman, it needs more research for him to be able to pull all those numbers in the detail that I want, so it's not gonna be during this budget cycle, but we will have those numbers, and as soon as we get that done, I'll share that so we can find it. And I can probably find an answer, Mark, to your question.
I just was like, it's
Yeah.
such a drastic,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't say drastic, I mean, 30,000, but
When
it's
yes,
probably
when it's
60%.
been fairly consistent,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, we'll have to look back and at that.
Well, it's a big year for the library.
Okay, so are we done with the library?
Understatement.
Okay, Conservation Commission, 218.
Just remind me why the advertising, I highlighted that.
Yeah, she requested
3805.
3,000, I reduced it to 1,000 because of the newsletter, we can utilize that,
Okay.
that was the thought.
Oh, right, okay.
And the printing was reduced because we'll do a lot of that in-house that they're looking for.
And I think that next year you'll have a better painted picture of what they actually need. I mean,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
no, it's a good bunch.
well, it's
Okay.
helpful that they have a 5-year plan, I mean, that's,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay. Next. Parks,
222.
22.
Uh, 222,
Yeah.
yes,
What is it?
parks.
Parks, 222.
Yeah, oh, right, I thought you were referring to a line.
Yeah, sorry.
So this is where we were talking about the benches.
Yes, so one
Yeah.
comment I have there too is that we don't have any revenue budgeted for park bench sales in this case. So, I mean, there is the potential there that in the next fiscal year that we sell a park bench for $5,000.
Well,
So you could add that in as a revenue.
Don't we only have one, two, Sal?
I mean, can we review this? I
Yeah.
thought, let's just review for Denise and Bill who weren't here. I'm not sure that I have the precise recollection, so maybe you recall
Well-
this better than I.
Right. In this year's budget, we had money budgeted for almost 2 benches, like 1.88 benches.
Yeah,
We've ordered 1 bench, and it's gonna be delivered at the end of next month. So that still leaves 0.8 benches there, and it turns out there's probably a little extra money in our budget, so we're thinking about, because the lead time is so many months, we were thinking that we'd go ahead and give them the green light to start making the second bench. The plan is to sell each bench for $5,000, or lease it for 10 years for $5,000. So, and a bench costs $2,800.
and so my recollection was that we had decided that it had been, we had received a request for more benches than the 2, and we said, no, let's start out with the 2 benches,
Yep.
and let's have this be a self-sustaining
Right.
sort of thing.
2, we sell
And
1,
and then we sell 1, and then we buy more benches.
order another.
And so I appreciate the fact that you took it from 7 benches down to 2, but I guess what I'm having a little problem with is all of a sudden now we're talking about laying out the money for 2 more benches when that was not the plan.
I
Right.
couldn't argue with that, because the weak point in this whole thing is, and, I'm sure my colleagues on the committee will kill me, but the weak point in this whole thing is the marketing to
Right.
sell the benches.
Right.
And, the best of intentions, isn't gonna necessarily do that. So I guess if we drop these benches from this budget here, it would be a challenge to our group to go out and,
Sell one.
sell
agree.
those 2 benches, and then we'll buy
Right.
a couple more.
That was my recollection also, was that we purchased two. When we sell one, we'll go buy another one, and it will be self-sustaining, so we'd always have one ready to go
Right.
with the other one right behind it, not build up an inventory of 4
Right.
with 0 sold.
Right,
Well,
right.
so the other way to handle that too is to build into the budget the revenue side of that, because then that offsets it, so that allows us to, it will self-perpetuate itself, but it shows in the budget that there's money that's being expended for the budget, for the benches, and then money coming in for the rental lease of the benches as well, instead of completely taking them out, off the books per se.
But why do we need to have them on the books?
Well, why have 4, I guess is the question.
Well, I mean, why do we need to have them on the books if we're going to get the revenue in, and then we would have the money to purchase
From an auditing
them?
standpoint.
Doesn't
Why do we
everything
need to
go
have
into-
them on the books?
Well, we got a check from somebody, it should be reflected.
Well, yeah, yeah,
Either-
yeah.
So either way, I mean, either way, if you're gonna, if the plan is that we run it through a separate account, if you will, then we would take out the purchase of the benches from here, and then the revenue would go into that account, and then you buy the benches from that account, so it wouldn't show up in the budget. Or you show up the expense and the revenue in the budget, either way. I mean, it's offsetting, no matter what you do.
If we took these 2 benches out of this coming year's budget, and we had 2 benches to sell, if we sold both of those benches, and we had that money, even though we hadn't budgeted for
You
2
could still-
benches in the coming year, could
You
we
can still go get 2, you can
Yeah.
still go buy 2 benches,
could go
because
buy
the money,
2 more.
That's
the money,
point. That's the intent, yeah.
the net change is 0.
Okay, well, then
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I
so
don't
you could
think
take
to
the
me.
expense out.
Yeah, take the 5,300 out.
Okay.
I'm wondering about the price of the benches, because I think that was set when we thought the benches.
Well, we haven't marketed them yet.
What
Yeah,
line?
I'm just thinking.
It is 5310.
Yeah, yeah,
That-
you know.
Oh,
we
wait a
need to
minute.
get
No,
serious.
no, it's not.
7348.
7348, yeah.
Yeah, wait till we
That's
get
on
that.
page 222, 7348.
Yeah, that was, the other one was trees.
Don't pull that.
7348, right,
5,300.
right.
And I just want to make a point too, that in this year's budget, we have bought that one bench, but we haven't received any revenue. So we did budget revenue in this year's budget, or my predecessors
right.
did. So I'm a little concerned about that. But if
Yeah,
the bench is ordered and we don't have to pay for it until, but that's a discussion we'll have to have.
right. Okay, yeah, it's clearly something the committee needs to get serious about.
But only one bench was ordered, right? And we had enough money for 1.8 benches?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wouldn't be going
Well,
out and
but-
buying that eighth of a bench.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We have to be careful because we don't have the revenue coming in
Right.
this year's budget unless somebody purchases, or
Well,
at least.
partly too, I think once the bench is delivered, I think that'll help us with the marketing of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it will.
Put it in Goodrich Park and a sign and, so.
We'll have Doug sitting on it like Red Auerbach,
With this coffee from the Y?
right, instead of a cigar.
So that we agree the 5,300 goes away?
Yeah.
Yes. In line, what did we say, 7348?
Right.
Is that it on that department?
Yep.
Yeah, the
was thinking.
landfill reserve,
Yeah, we talked through that.
what did we decide on the landfill reserve?
Well, we said we'd leave it as is. We talked about it, and this is because you had a meeting coming up where you need some monies to pay for somebody to do the assessment, how much it's gonna cost to fix the,
Oh, Legacy Rockport.
Legacy Rockport
They're
has,
paying
right,
for
and they're
that,
working
yeah,
with
they're
somebody.
paying for it.
Yep.
Okay, then 226 for the Opera House?
the Opera House. We said, 7304 down on Capitol that we were gonna put 3,000 back in.
Yes,
So that will take that to, that 7304 puts that at 3,000 instead of your 0, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Sorry, where?
I'm at 7304. I made a note that the other day, Bill said we needed to put $3,000 back into that line.
Okay.
That's-
Right.
It's in this year, but hasn't been spent, so it'll just be carried forward.
So this is where we go back to my point earlier about the
Cable channel.
cable channel, which, again, I was in favor of, but we got the newsletter, and maybe we put it off yet another year.
Did we skip over
What,
recreation?
I guess,
Where is it?
Nobody watch, I mean,
what, how
Nobody
many
watches
people
live stream.
provided feedback on the cable channel?
I,
Or lack of.
I'm thinking I had 3 people, 3 residents who came to me.
Okay.
and they don't otherwise
Marcy
have
was one of them
internet
who's
access.
hot on it, huh?
They don't have internet access to watch the live stream.
No, we didn't say that. They-
I didn't,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
may
I
not-
mean,
they may or they may
certainly there
not.
are people who don't have internet access to watch it. But on the other hand, are they gonna turn it on instead of whatever else they watch?
Right,
And
'cause
if
at
we've
least
got
the
the
live
newsletters
stream-
coming out, then maybe we should just do the newsletters, since we fully funded the newsletters, and not do this right now.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
I
I'd
would
like,
be
and
inclined.
speaking of the newsletters, I just want to see how we gauge how receptive people are to that, I guess, you know, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you're gonna.
No, I don't
think you're
either,
gonna
but
see
I'm
it
just,
from
you know, 'cause we don't,
anecdotal.
we don't get anybody that watches, we don't get anybody that comes to the meetings.
But see, the difference with the newsletter and people attending meetings or watching the live stream or even watching the cable
Yeah.
channel is that you're feeding it to them.
And you can read it at your leisure.
And you can read it at your
on the
leisure.
kitchen
And I think,
table.
I really, in my experience when I've done this, it's been hugely popular. I mean, people, they look at it, they read it, you put inserts in there, you provide enough information. And I know I'm acting like a salesman for it, but
No,
I think it's really important. I think it'll be a huge
I
benefit.
appreciate the level of passion on that issue.
No, I do
guess the-
too.
where-
And
Where's the line for the cable?
The cable is 5316, right?
Yeah.
360.
So that's 2250, so, and because Bill's so passionate about that, I'm not so sure that we need to do this at the same time.
I
With
would
the,
cut it back to the 500 that was
Yeah, what's that
requested
500
during-
Yeah, it was
represent?
1750 was the
Yeah.
amount for the equipment for the
Yeah,
cable
right,
broadcast.
so, and the 500 represents what?
Probably just
Just
routine maintenance.
routine.
Routine
stuff.
supplies for
So
audio
what,
and video.
in this,
Yeah.
you know, because I got a million questions. What's the equipment we have in the basement that's cable related, that one of our no longer residents from Camden comes over and has access to and monitors it?
The basement in the town
In
office?
the
Yeah.
town office. He was a
I've
former.
never gotten an answer.
He-
I've asked that
He's a
question.
former select board member, and there's a cable
I know there
ready
is.
outfit down there.
I know there
and-
is.
And that's,
Yeah.
because I had asked,
There was
We've asked Jeff
somebody
about
that
it.
used to come over, I don't know what channel it streamed on, but at one point it streamed, I don't know that anybody has touched that for.
And
because I asked about
I asked Jeff Parker about it. He's aware of it. I forget exactly what he told me, but basically like it was outdated or whatever. And so, I mean, I know that when this number of 1750, sorry about that. Jeff Parker just called me. I
So-
wonder if he's watching.
So my point was the person still has a security
Yeah.
code
Are you
to get in the
watching?
building, and if they don't need to, because
Can I put you on speakerphone?
when we were doing with Diane about.
Okay, instant answer to your question. Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
So the equipment down in the basement of the town office is twofold. It's the junction point where the town's cable TV goes out to Cable Land, which is interestingly enough Syracuse, New York. And then there's a whole set of gear with the aforementioned former select board member, which is what used to be Channel 7, and I don't know where it got
Yeah.
assigned to now, but they're basically two systems that do somewhat the same thing, except that and I'm going to forget his name, for the non-town owned gear, it's basically a whole server that has television programs on it that just gets cycled through. So it's a remotely controlled access to Spectrum's cable TV networks.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'd still reduce the budget to, back to 500.
what does the 500 do?
The 500 is for repair and upgrade of equipment, and
Okay.
The 3,000 for next year is a big piece of equipment that will help the meetings. Right now, anybody who brings in their own computer can't tie it into our system. The 3,000 would allow for that, plus a lot of other stuff.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
And so that combined, if we don't break anything between now and the day before the fiscal year, we place an order that sucks up the 500 from this fiscal year and the 3,000 from next in order to put that in. All right?
Okay,
Great, thanks,
Jeff
Jeff.
Parker
Thanks.
signing off.
thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye.
Did I hear a proposal
I'd go to
to
500,
move it to
Yeah,
500?
Go to 500.
What line is that?
5316.
I was a little concerned about the high expectations on revenue for the Opera House based on past history.
I thought you watched the live stream. We did talk about that. So the plan is that we'll a couple of different avenues. We're working on a marketing plan, as you know.
Right, right.
So
And if you tell me that you really feel like this is a very achievable number and,
I don't have the history to be able to give you that assurance. I'm gonna try my damnedest, along with Drew, to try to make sure that we do get that number and hopefully more.
okay,
Because we're just starting with the marketing plan that, hopefully we can massage that and get that to the committee and probably have more ideas to it as well. As I said the other night about, we had a band in February on a Thursday night that we basically revenue shared with. We had them come in and play. We didn't really market them as much as we'd like to. There was marketing of them, but we revenue shared. So on a Thursday night, there was 100 people that came and bought tickets, which was not a bad number for a first attempt at
Thursday
that.
in February, yeah.
Yeah, and a Thursday in February. So, the thought is that on Friday nights and Saturday nights throughout the winter, maybe we have different performers that we can come in and we can do another similar revenue sharing type thing and utilize the building. And then on a separate note also is the marketing plan to try to get more events in the building that are producing the revenue. And there will be another adjustment to the fee schedule. So that will be happening. And again, as I get more experience and I'm diving more into some of these areas and getting more data, and a lot of that's thanks to Megan's assistant, is that she's prepared a lot of data on this so that I can really see what the actual costs are for the different events, based on security hours, house manager's time, custodian time, and all that, so then I can see what it is. She's got electricity, heat, everything's broken down
Great.
by the events, which is helpful, so then we know how much does it cost us to host that event, and how much do we have to charge for it, and then in addition, so that we have that. So I think we can get there.
Okay,
Long answer to a short question.
My last thing on there was the elevator question on 4130.
Yes.
I think that's like a $500 reduction we might be able to do, I'm not sure.
I'm looking in my notes because we looked that up.
Because I know when I
It's
signed.
$350.
It's 350?
Yep.
Perfect. 350 here, 350 there.
The other larger thing here, too, that I mentioned earlier, if you're looking at making an additional cut, Mike certainly could weigh in on that, too, but the deposit into the Opera House Building Reserve, certainly we have projects that are gonna need to be done here. We've talked about the lighting upgrade that needs to happen upstairs, as well as all the audio boards and all of that type of thing, the light boards. But you could potentially reduce that by $5,000, go from 25 to 20.
You said the elevator line was 1480 down to,
11:30,
so 350.
Which line number is
I'm
that?
sorry, I was
41:30.
calculating something.
4130.
4130.
goes to 11:30 from 1480.
Goes to 1130.
Yeah.
No, it's 11:30.
And I was sorry, and you said we could reduce what, Bill?
The Opera House,
7565.
yeah, 7565.
Say 5,000 there.
And the reason I'm saying that is that because the AC replacement is only 41,000 instead of $120,000. So we still need to keep adding money into that reserve because it's an old building and there's other repairs that will be needed.
So reduce it by 5.
But I would say reduce it by 5 would be comfortable.
And what's in the we have enough in the reserve now to pay for the AC?
Yes, well, yes, yep, sorry. Yeah, there's more than enough. It's like 120,000 in the reserve account now.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's a big reserve.
Well,
I'm not gonna cut, but if you're willing to go down to 20, then.
yeah. Anything else there? Page 236, recreation.
On 236, if push came to shove, right, we got a mower in there for $14,000 to save $4,600 a year in contracted mowing services.
Correct.
I mean, if push came to shove, that could move out a year, which would save approximately 10K.
It could.
It's out there. I'm not
But
a
it's an
proponent.
investment in,
I'm not a proponent either way. I'm just saying if we had to find $10,000,
You could.
you could do that and you'd still
Yes, I would argue,
survive.
I would argue to keep that simply because then the mowing will be done on a more consistent basis to keep the
Oh, yeah.
buildings
No, I
True.
understand
looking
why.
well. Yeah.
Have we, I mean, you haven't, because you haven't had the opportunity to be here full cycle yet, but have they been receptive any times that we've talked to them about coming in and sprucing it up for the dandelions or the June vote or?
To get him to come mow a second time, I mean, we'd have to just do it per time. And that's one of the things, this mower, not only saving and doing some of these lawns ourselves, is to try to keep up, for one, keeping people happy on the town office, the harbor, not looking
Well,
like
you
it's
guys
been
are
mowed at all,
Right.
is mowing it twice, and just a little bit of safety on,
My,
The residents that are looking at the,
no, my point was that if we had to find
Yeah.
$10,000,
right. And
there's 10 grand.
yeah. Well, if you had to find 10,000, I'd have other places that I could,
Well, do tell.
the Opera House Building Reserve could come down even more.
Oh, yeah.
Let's keep that in mind.
The
We'll come back
Opera
to
House
that.
Building Reserve could
Okay.
come down even more. So I'm a proponent of that, just from the control standpoint.
Yeah, I am
well, and after
too.
3 years.
After 3 years, you're saving money.
Yeah, I'm
In this,
proponent of
and the added additional responsibilities of whomever is gonna mow isn't gonna be taking them away from something else, or,
The personnel that we have in place, I think, is more than adequate to be able to do that, and it won't take them away from their duties that much. And it may be spread amongst more than just public works, so.
How to ride it.
We'll have Denise and Deborah out there.
Hey, we could do out there, we weed, we might as well mow. Listen, I used to mow my place in Illinois, I enjoyed it.
Anything else, or more discussion about that? Debt service, page 242. There's really not much you can do there.
Yeah.
County fees, not much you can do there.
No, I think we're done, right?
I think we're done.
Oh, got some tags.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's cemeteries. I had no changes.
256, page 256.
Yeah, 256. So, Bill, you had said, I know that the questions were raised about the columbarium. You said you had ideas on that, and
I do. I think it's,
And so we don't have to go into them, but,
yeah, I think it's worthwhile to give me some time to work with the
yeah,
cemetery committee. and-
right, right. I was just reminding everybody that, you weren't,
There could be some good revenue opportunities here.
yeah, that there's some other opportunities there. $46,000 for mowing. Okay, anything there? Cemeteries. And then, oh, I guess we do
We get provider agencies,
Spider
I have no
agencies,
change.
260, I have no change there. Anybody else?
Nope.
Nothing we can do about the schools? So that,
Get you the special assessments, page 264,
264.
which is the last one.
There's nothing there, right?
Unless,
Correct.
Unless you don't send tax bills.
Unless what?
well, unless we, you know, because we've got a pretty good chunk of our 51,710 chewed up. 51,710 was the amount that we were over the LD one.
Yeah,
My figures have us at 30,150 in what we have projected to adjust.
Do you have that?
I actually have 32,800.
I got 30,160. Boy, we're good at math.
Well, we're 10 apart, so.
Well, I'm counting the $10,000 for the excise tax in there.
I
mean,
did.
As did I.
So did I.
All right, yeah, so I didn't capture every little change, I captured just the big ones.
Megan's
but-
working on it.
Yeah,
It's-
I'll
it's-
trust
Gonna
Megan's
have the real
numbers.
number.
I got 160 because we had a $60,
Right, the
Post office box.
we had the post office box for 60 bucks.
Oh, yeah, I didn't write that down. yeah.
Well,
I
we
mean,
put
so
it-
we're-
we
I
put it
guess
back
what
in
I'm-
there.
Anyway, your point,
So my point is, we're 21,000 away, and, I mean, I'm still, I mean, even if we had to take 21,000 out of UFB,
before you go there,
okay.
I think we've got one remaining thing.
We gotta put some ads back in.
We talked about the possibility about maybe putting a contingency in there for some, wage adjustment.
Yeah, I would be a proponent of that, and I would be a proponent of that because I did the math in my head. Number of employees, number that may or may not expect, or not expect, but may require a change, and I think a number close to 15,000 is something that we would allow Bill to work with a caveat that nobody's salary goes down.
Come on.
They'd only be going up.
And I had,
What number did you say,
you
50?
said
15
15.
to
I
work
had
with for
merely
next
guessed
year.
at 10, so.
And that's 1,000 different.
Well, I
No,
just.
no, I'm fine, I'm just,
No, I'm just saying that I think of what the amount of increases might be or not be. I'm just looking at the puts and takes and the number of people. And I think 15 is a number that would give you plenty of leeway. You don't have to spend it all to work in one direction or another.
what's the number that was budgeted?
I don't know yet.
Zero.
Nothing.
Yeah, we
Just-
got a 3%.
Just to give you where you are with LD1,
And
so
that's-
the number that Megan gave me is that we're 21,250 over
Yeah.
LD1.
Yeah,
So
that's
which
about
one
what
of
we
you
thought.
was right?
How's that?
It was at 50.
Um,
$60 from the
So
mailbox threw
I
it all
thought,
off.
I thought there was 16, and I'd have
That's
to
in the
give,
police department.
okay.
That's
Yeah,
only in the
60.
police
So that's
department.
just for those, so
Negotiations.
That's just for those
the eight of your
negotiations.
29 people you might be factoring into.
Yeah, but that's still, I think 15's close to the right number.
So what do you think, Bill, about that?
It would, certainly would give me flexibility if there was some funding in there built in, and I certainly wouldn't use it if I didn't need to.
Right.
But do we want to do that midstream, or do we want to wait until the next budget cycle and make the adjustments then?
It's always beneficial to be able to make the changes in the middle of the year because it rewards the employees for what, not just for, it's not merit, certainly, it's just providing that increase for what the work that they're doing that's comparable to another
Right.
community, so.
And I've been trying to get this thing done for
Yep.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you may have sensed our frustration earlier.
Absolutely. I think somewhere, a number between 10 or 15 would be,
Okay, that's what I was
would be in there.
If you have 15, you got it to work with, it's
Sure.
in the budget, you,
Don't have to spend
how
it.
you use it is up to you, based on revisions to position descriptions, roles and responsibilities, and a fair comparison across the board. But it should be timed, you're talking about August-ish, my hope is it's much before that,
That's what I'm looking at, yeah.
where you can look at, see who is deserving of changes based on comps, and make those changes so that the amount of consternation around this issue is gone.
Yep, no, I'm fine with that, if that's what the board is.
I can support 15.
I can too.
No, I'm good. I mean,
All right, so can I just want to make sure that we have these down. And I did not capture the little ones here, but I just want, and I know that Megan did. But the bigger things, we reduced the legal fees by 5,000. We increased the excise tax by 10,000. We decreased the radio reserve from 11,250 down to 5,000, which was a savings of 6,250. We deleted the park benches for 5,300. We reduced the cable TV, whatever, or the audiovisual line item down from
2250.
yeah, 22, yeah. We deleted 1,750 out of it, right?
Yes.
So it's 500 now. We did an opera house building reserve. We reduced that by 5,000.
Yeah.
Added 3,000 in the Opera House too,
Yeah.
don't forget.
So the ones,
Added 3,000, right?
the ones, the little ones I've got are the town clerk's travel expenses from $750 to $1,000. The whopping $60 for the fire department's post office box. There was $350 in the elevator, saved. And then all that gets offset, some by the 15,000 in reserve, in
And then-
contingency
For the employees.
for salaries.
Salaries,
Salary
right.
adjustment,
Salary
salary
adjustments,
adjustments based on salary
15,000.
survey and position
Right.
description changes, et cetera.
So where does that put us in terms of LD one?
15,000 worse.
250 over.
which, what number?
36,
35.
250.
It'd be 36.
250 over.
'Cause we went
36,250.
You know, and I hate to.
Can I,
Go ahead.
you want me to help you?
Yes.
And this is a little bit of a policy decision, but the Walker Park seawall, if you remember, I mentioned that I didn't budget for the low bid. I budgeted for the second lowest bid. So we have been investigating the low bidder, checking references, comparing what projects they've done. They have not done this type of project before on a seawall. It's not in the water, though, this project isn't. I can't tell you right now that I would recommend them because I don't have enough data back, but that's a $15,000 difference between the low bidder and the second lowest bidder.
Do either of those, and I don't need to know, but do either of those companies, are they in town?
No. We had one company that is based in Rockport that bid, and they weren't the first or second low bidder.
But there's a percentage that they're allowed,
Yeah, but they're way over.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, if you wanted to budget to reduce that number in the Walker Park seawall, and we go with the low bidder, you save $15,000 right there.
Rather than 50.
We don't want to do that if we're not sure that that's an okay.
I'm just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
When will you have enough data?
I'm hoping soon. You know, it's just a matter of you calling people and
But we
the
wouldn't want
engineers.
to box you in.
Yeah, the
to
engineer is
the
doing
low
that for
bid
me,
If you
so-
end up concluding that we're,
Right, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yep.
It's an option.
You know, we got another, oh, I'm sorry, you get the list?
Yep. The Public Works Sand Salt Storage Shed Reserve account. We've got $20,000 budgeted in there. And again, this is we expect that the repair will be a lot less than replacing the structure. This is the storage building. So you could reduce that number from 20,000 to 10,000. And that would still allow us, I think, plenty of money to be able to make that repair happen. May have a little bit of a buffer there, but we don't know that yet at this point either. Again, we're still waiting for the engineer's report when it comes back on that. But I would feel comfortable that we
You
could,
would feel comfortable at this point now, reducing that to
I
10,000?
would feel comfortable you could reduce that by
I think that's a
10,000.
consensus. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Do we, and I'm just gonna ask, do we still store stuff for Camden over there? They've moved everything back over. I was trying to get a little money from them, you know, what the hell?
I'm good with it.
I agree with Bill in where we're at, that 10,000, I would take it there probably quicker than right this minute giving up the 15 and not knowing.
I would too. I would too, absolutely.
Okay.
So now we're back to 26,250.
Correct.
And you had something else on your list?
Well, the only other thing I had on my list was using undesignated fund balance to make up that difference.
You know,
And I don't want to use it, but
It's-
30,000,
it sounds silly, but I think if we, I mean, we've got it down to a very good number, but if we don't even have that as an option for them to say, no, we don't want you to exceed it, and we're that close, taking 26,250 out of it to break it even, I'd be good to take our consensus tonight. Not that I.
What is
To
the
take,
undesignated
to take
fund
that
balance?
26,000 from LD.
You-
what's the amount
Yeah,
now?
from the UFB.
We're at about 2.8 million.
But you don't know, right? I mean, this will be till
Well,
the end, June 30 is when.
Yeah, this is, right, this is as of last June that we don't
Okay.
have audited numbers for yet,
Well,
which
we're
has
at
been a-
40, we're at 40 days, right, worth of money, and we're building our,
Yeah,
What-
We were at what, third?
well, they say they want 30 in the charter. Is that right?
go ahead.
The charter says 12%. 12% is not enough to keep us from
Right.
borrowing
that's
a
30
tax
days.
Yeah,
anticipation.
and I'm good with
Right.
that, and we're working our way up.
Yeah, I'd like to see 90 days. I mean,
And,
that's,
and I'm okay getting there, I just don't wanna,
no, but, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
saying, because this current year that we're in, we budgeted $160,000. That's a
Where-
big number. So if we only
where's-
budget 30, that's a $130,000 difference. So it's
what are your
substantial.
projections, what are your projections, Megan, with what we've spent for what was budgeted year to date?
We are right at about, at the end of March, I would expect that we'll be right at 75%. We've had some big things come up this year that have,
Yeah,
And it is, again, I'll express my frustration so that you know when we have the different proposals in from auditing firms, that it's very difficult for us to go off numbers that we're estimating for back in June 2019.
still nothing from them yet?
They're hung up on the library committee reimbursements. So we hear it from everywhere.
I mean, we talked about that when Smith
Yes.
gave his presentation 2 years ago,
Yes,
I think.
yes,
Well, there's a lot of frustration there on the Midco Solid Waste with that same
Yeah.
firm.
yeah.
and Camden
And
too.
Camden.
Camden as well.
because
They
of
don't have their
values.
audit either.
Right.
For anybody listening, get ready to apply. Did I say that?
But so I would be comfortable with $30,000 on an undesignated fund balance.
Yeah, and that's 26,250.
Yeah, 26,250, just round it to 30, and you can say, look, we're under LD1.
Well, we're at it, we're under it, whatever, but I mean, I think when we go for the fire station, which is gonna be another big hurdle, showing this extra little bit of,
Frugalness.
frugalness will buy us a lot of good.
We're within fractions of a percent of LD one. I could support being where we are after those changes right there and pulling from LD one for the difference
UFB.
in the UFB.
That's a consensus. Okay.
This still has got to go to the budget committee.
Yes.
So we need to be prepared for changes
Right.
recommended from that group.
But at least we have
At least we have something to send.
yeah.
And Doug didn't even ask to get rid of the stipends.
You shouldn't have reminded him.
Yeah, the stipends, the
It's a
select
personal
board
choice.
stipends.
Yeah, I know.
yeah, well, didn't we?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
No, that's right, we didn't, no,
Talk
we
about
didn't,
it.
but we got the thing from Phil
Yeah.
saying
Oh.
that we have to pay taxes on it, we can't not take it, we can't.
Well, yeah, but
do-
we could make it $1.
For next year.
Oh, yeah, we could reduce it to $1. The problem is,
Year after.
while some of us still have another term yet, you guys are up for reelection and you'd be reducing it for whoever fills your position.
I don't think that's what people run or don't run.
I don't think so either.
I am in favor of no change.
As am I. Again, thank you guys, because this is so much less stressful than it has been the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But it should be.
So, like in previous years, I'll type these up, cause we're gonna have to add comments to the details page for the items that you changed. And then, assuming it's okay with Bill, I'll send it to all of you, and if you could reply to me individually if you have any changes that you want, and then I'll send the revised one out to
And
everybody.
those would be changes that were just something
Wording.
that, wording or
changes,
something,
not
not
dollar amounts,
change,
just-
not dollar amounts. right?
Yeah, for the reasonings why the changes are there, yes.
got the post office box of
Yeah, I'll tell you, that $60 in the post office threw it off. It's not a 50 or 100 number.
So do you want your expense, revenue, and net budget numbers so you can do your vote?
Consensus votes?
Yes. So we actually have to do a consensus vote now, which we can do in a workshop.
It's a consensus
Yeah.
vote versus a motion, so it's,
So nobody makes a motion. We just, how do we handle that?
In the past, Ken just said what the expenditures were, what the revenues were, what the net budget was, and that you guys were sending it on to the budget committee.
Okay.
Okay?
You ready? Yep. Expenses, 6,456,081. Revenues, 2,252,047. Net budget, $4,204,034.
I am aligned and can come to consensus that we send those numbers to the budget committee.
What percentage is that? 2,
Is 5.63.
5.6?
6863.
5.63?
Okay.
does that include? the
So can
schools?
we just all go around and say that we agree with that?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Doug, start.
Fine with those numbers to the vote.
I agree.
As am I.
Yes.
And I am in agreement as well.
And that means you get the night off tomorrow night.
I think we're adjourned.